This video is going to be a look at the Ravens outside linebacker position. This will be probably the first positional preview, positional breakdown that I do prior to training camp to try to generate some conversation, some views, some discussion about the positional groups. I think there's two position groups that most Ravens fans would vote for if they were trying to improve a particular position, either outside linebacker, edge rusher, or cornerback. I'm going to project some of the things that I think each guy has as their strength. I'm a huge fan of Tyus Bowser. He's just a complete football player. David Ojabo's got a lot of potential. I'm really looking forward to seeing him on the field more in the regular season. I really don't care about the preseason. And then the guy I'm going to start with this video series is probably the most polarizing, but maybe perhaps the most important for the Ravens, and that's third-year outside linebacker Odafe Oweh. He's still just 24 years old. He won't turn 25 until December. In 2 years with the Ravens, yeah, he's made some dynamic plays. You're seeing some of them here. I think that might be part of the problem. He had a really hot start as a rookie, if you recall, in 2021. That might have been why the expectations were set super high. Now, granted, he was a first-round pick, so the expectations should have been high already. But as a rookie, if you recall, he had 3 sacks and 6 quarterback hits in his first 5 games. And you're seeing some highlights roll through here of the Week 2 win over the Chiefs in 2021. That was a game where he didn't have a sack. That was the only game in the opening month where he didn't have a sack, if I remember correct. The Ravens' 36-35 win. But he had 2 incredibly clutch plays late in that win, one of which here, the QB hit on the delayed blitz that forces a really bad decision by Patrick Mahomes into an interception caught by Tavon Young, and then the real timely swat to force a fumble by Chiefs running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire that you're seeing here. You've seen a couple times with a little less than a minute and 30 left in the game. The Ravens clinging to a 1-point lead, and the Chiefs moving down to try to get a chance at a game-winning field goal or go-ahead field goal. That opening stretch probably set the bar a little bit too high. And statistically, Oweh has just not lived up to these numbers or that hype since then. He's played in 28 games since this one against the Chiefs in 2021. And he's only registered 5 sacks in that time, maybe 6 if I've done my math incorrect there. Please let me know. I do intend to show a significant amount of film from 2022 in this video. I believe it portrays Oweh's performance well, and what I mean by that is simply he's been very inconsistent. There's been moments or entire games where he was locked on. The Bengals' playoff loss was perhaps the most extended example of really consistent play for him. I thought he played great in that loss against the run and the pass. It was a really complete game. I think he was only credited with 1 sack, even though he literally drove the right guard into Joe Burrow's lap and almost had another half sack on that play, and you'll see that here in a moment. Another play that I don't show here, he got into a passing lane when he was asked to drop back in coverage, which I don't think he's well suited to do. I think there's enough film of that to prove that. Don't really need to spend a whole lot of time on it. But in the playoff game, he had a really nice pass drop in the curl or in the hook area, got in the window that Burrow was trying to find. He chased down Joe Burrow on another scramble. I just thought he was really impactful in that game along with Tyus Bowser. However, it's easier to focus on the negatives at times. And the first play that I showed you, it's going to loop around here in a moment, in this little pass rush set, is the one that gets a lot of attention. It's a 3rd down. Now, granted, it ended up not being a pass play. I believe it's a 3rd down against the Falcons at home. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6. And either way, this is clearly not one of his better plays. This is a poor play, just for real. I thought that he played really well against the Bills earlier in the season, before this game. But in my opinion, he just gives up his chest too often on pass rush moves or lack thereof a move to generate or plan anything. And this run play, which is basically a KO on a run play, is more of a rarity. I think he's actually been able to redirect and make plays against the run. But this one, if you ask me, is an example where he gets jumped by the right tackle from the standpoint of him thinking that it's a pass play. I might have the down and distance wrong. So if I do, feel free to let me know. Compared to his impressive play in the wild card game, this play stands out, obviously, as a situation where he looked horrible. I'm going to focus on his pass rush in this little video set and the next one. I feel like he's a guy without a fastball, to use a baseball pitcher analogy. at least so far, his speed rush has been very inconsistent, even though you see some examples of him winning with speed to power, as they say. He doesn't seem super committed to it. And when I say it, I mean his speed rush. He doesn't seem super committed to it. There's times like this one here where he gets a little bit upfield and maybe is a little bit out of control, but is able to redirect back and in and get involved with the play. I wonder in what direction the relationship goes in terms of his speed rush. Here's the question I'll pose. Does his lack of commitment make his speed rush less effective? Or is the relationship in the other direction? Is his speed rush really only like a C plus level move? And he knows it. And that's why he doesn't commit to it. I don't know. Either way, I feel like he lacks a real speed rush in the ability to bend around the edge with a low framework consistently and set up other moves. I feel like he gives up his chest too often. And look, some of these examples you're seeing are not meant for any of us to sit here and say that's a win, that's a loss, because I really don't like that way of judging pass rushers. Sometimes the ball is just out quick, and there's nothing you can do. There's a play, I think, against Baker Mayfield and the Panthers from 2022 here in a moment that you'll see where the ball's just out quick. It doesn't matter what he or any other pass rusher does. This is the play I'm talking about. Either way, I feel like him lacking a real speed rush so far makes it difficult to set up other moves well. Even though you see some examples, this is an extremely impressive play, obviously, of him putting two spin moves on, getting a quarterback hit, slinging Tom Brady to the ground. If you ask me, the margin for error for Oweh on his pass rush move seems to be really small. I'm not explaining this from a real technical standpoint, so forgive me for that. But when you combine the less than impressive speed rush to the inconsistent use of his hands, in my opinion, you've got inconsistent usage of his hands, and simultaneous to that, hopefully I can explain this well, the timing of his hand moves, the timing of his swats often seems to be off a little bit. And those factors, if you ask me, make his margin for error really small, in my opinion. I didn't mean to fast forward to that one. Forgive me for that. That makes the margin for error for him really small. I'm not doing a good job explaining this probably from a technical standpoint, but he's got an upright style in a lot of ways with his moves. And then you get some plays where he looks really off balance. Now, again, this is a running play here that begins this segment, but my point in showing it is it illustrates when he's off balance. I feel like sometimes his upper body and his lower body isn't really coordinated. I'm really referring to pass plays. But I think that knockdown against the Falcons actually kind of proves my point. I thought it was a 3rd and 6 where he was expecting a pass set by the right tackle, and instead he got jumped. Again, I could be wrong on all that. Look, do I think that Odafe Oweh can be a 10 to 12 sack per season type of guy? That's a really big jump for 2022 based on what we saw. I think we saw 3.5 sacks. And I've got another 3 plays where he's really close to being credited with a half sack or credited with a full sack. You had so many plays where Justin Houston is in there, Matabike, Oweh, Bowser, guys are all there at the same time, and you don't know who they've credited it with. And I'm just showing you the film. Realistically, I think we could see an 8 or 10 sack effort in 2023, especially if the Ravens reach their potential and they end up in the lead often in the second half of games. I'm really not talking about 2019 type, where you're in the lead every single week. I don't know that that's realistic. But with Tyus Bowser and David Ojabo healthy for the whole season, along with Oweh, there's just going to be times where he's off the field. Oweh's probably the more talented pass rusher. Ojabo is probably the more talented pass rusher of that trio in terms of a speed rush, in terms of natural ability. Bowser's the more complete football player by far than the other two. It's just not even close. Oweh probably fits somewhere in between those guys in most categories. I'm talking about against the pass. I'm isolating this against the pass, even though that Falcons play I showed you was obviously a run play. Moving on to against the run, I think he's been more consistent than pass rush situations, despite this play. I think he's really good at redirecting to the football after the initial block, for real. And you're going to see some examples of it in this video. On zone read plays where he's unblocked, he's got a little different technique in year 2, 2022, than he did in 2021. I feel like he's more flat and more parallel to the line of scrimmage, like you see with his shoulders here. Generally left shoulder pointed down the line here, right shoulder pointed down the line here. Last year, it seemed like he was more angled, looking in. And there was a couple times I remember 2021, the quarterback keeping it as early in the season and getting around the edge. That didn't happen once in 2022. He's got really, really long arms. His length is spectacular. Great athleticism to close down on the running back like you see there and force the fumble. Conversely, and this is really weird, when he's unblocked on pass plays, and I think I showed you one earlier on. I'm going backwards a little bit here in terms of my analysis or the audio, what I'm talking about. He hesitates when he's unblocked on pass plays. On run plays, it's kind of like he knows what to do. He's got the running back to his side. I know what to do to anticipate being left unblocked. Right? Having said all that, what do I think will actually happen? What do I think will actually happen with Odafe Oweh in 2023? Let me be clear. I do think he'll have a good season. I think he'll be impactful. I think he's going to give the Ravens good reps. Do I think he'll have 10 sacks? No, I do not. I would put it at 30-70 that he gets to 10 sacks or more. Now, that sounds negative towards Odafe Oweh. It's actually not. It's a combination of what he's good at right now, where I anticipate the Ravens, where and when I anticipate the Ravens using him, and then also what other guys are good at. So let me explain. Ojabo is going to get a lot of opportunities to rush the quarterback. Bowser is going to be on the field a lot. Bowser is that guy that they keep on the field on every situation, and they move him around. You see a little example of it here in 2021. You got Pernell McPhee on the field at D tackle there, playing like a wide 3 technique. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Ravens re-sign Justin Houston. Personally, I would advocate for him specifically because he can thrive on 20, 22 snaps per game. Justin Houston doesn't, and here's my comparison. Hopefully I can wrap this up in a way that's somewhat succinct, even though I'm not good at that. I'm long-winded, obviously. Justin Houston doesn't need 40 snaps a game to put up 8 or 10 sacks over the course of a season. Odafe Oweh does. That's the difference. It doesn't mean anything bad about Oweh. Justin Houston's just a savant as a pass rusher. He just is. He's a whatever he is, a Jedi Knight, something. Mace Windu, I think somebody called him in a video last year. I mean, he's just a savant. He can probably get 8 or 10 sacks for another 2 years in this league, playing a very minimal amount of snaps. I don't believe he's signed with anybody. Personally, I would want to keep him fresh for those pass rush situations, get him matchups that he can win. Oweh, Bowser would be your guys that you kick inside in some cases. There's other players on the roster that you would want in that situation too. And then let Ojabo be on the outside, establishing his speed rush, using his athleticism. I think Ojabo just looks like a guy who's a smoother pass rush guy in terms of using his hands, having a lower pad level while he's on the move than Oweh. Oweh seems to be a little bit more upright. Houston's got over 100 career sacks. Between him, Bowser, Oweh, and Ojabo, I think the Ravens will have everything they need at outside linebacker for this next season. The next player that I want to talk about in terms of previewing the Ravens outside linebacker position is probably where my opinion from so many other people differs the most, I guess I should say. One of my favorite Ravens players over the last 3 or 4 years, Tyus Bowser, is just extremely versatile and capable defender. He played an incredible game in the wild card loss to the Bengals. Across 2 levels of the defense, at the line of scrimmage, across the line of scrimmage as a pass rusher, dropping in coverage, rushing the quarterback. He had 3 quarterback hits, 1 sack. He had another play where he was one of 3 Ravens to disrupt Joe Burrow's timing. He was very forceful against the run to his side and just always in the right position on run concepts away from him. And then finally, perhaps the skill that really separates him from 90-95% of the other outside linebackers in the NFL. Not saying that he's better than 90% of the other outside linebackers in the NFL. What I mean is the skill that the majority of the rest of the NFL OLBs do not have, that Tyus Bowser does, in terms of separating him from the rest of the pack, is he just has rare coverage ability. And he showed that against the Bengals of the wild card game and in Week 18. And he's shown that strength for years, dating back to some amazing interceptions that he had in 2020 and 2021 that I'll show you here in a moment. He looked like himself in that wild card game against the Bengals, if you ask me. Just had a complete game across all levels. And I think really and we're going to start this off by showing some of his pass rush impact, whether it's stunts, whether it's one-on-one wins. I think his complete set of skills really fills out Mike Macdonald's defense. Mike Macdonald's defense needs someone like Tyus Bowser at the outside linebacker position who can rush on any play, who can be stout against the run to him or away from him. And then finally, who can drop into coverage, which again, we'll show you some of those plays here in a moment. Pass rush, look, he's got a really powerful high-level bull rush, and he showed effective and very consistent pressure against the Bengals. You're seeing some of the reps here. And really in the 2 weeks, that the Ravens had to go to Cincinnati consecutively, I think his outside speed rush could improve. There's no doubt about that if you ask me. He's got to use, to me, his bull rush as his main move and the speed rush as the counter off of that. Because really, does he have elite burst and sudden explosiveness on his speed rush for that to be his base move? No, I don't think he does. His game plan, I think, will look different than a David Ojabo, whose attack plan will look different from Odafe Oweh's. I think Bowser at his best could be a 8 to maybe 10 sack guy, and even that could be a little too high to be real, because now my opinion is going to differ than other people. 2021, he had, I think, 2 sacks called back and a third where I believe he should have got credit for a half sack, but I don't exactly remember the game. He's going to be on the field a lot because of his smart coverage ability, how great he is against the run, how versatile he is in coverage. He's going to be on the field a lot. So that gives him opportunity to be on the field. And I think in some ways it could actually work against him in terms of total sacks, total quarterback hits, because he's so good and so smart in coverage. I wonder if his ceiling on sacks isn't really like 7 or 8, because he'll be used in coverage so often, because he'll be dropped out so often, whether it's the Ravens sling cover 3 where Patrick Queen blitzes and Tyus Bowser drops back and Roquan Smith works across the field to take over Patrick Queen's drop, or whether it's a zone blitz or occasionally pushing out into the flats to get into the passing window. To be honest with you, I don't think the Ravens really need Tyus Bowser to have more than 6 sacks, maybe 8, because just his presence on the field gives them so many coverage options, forces the quarterback's processing, to use that word that is thrown out there so much, to be slowed down a little bit. I'm interested if Chuck Smith's coaching helps Bowser maybe create 1 or 2 supplementary moves to the bull rush, which, regardless of what anyone's overall opinion is on Bowser, how good he is, how effective he is, you got to admit that his bull rush is pretty damn amazing. All right, some of his best pass drop reps are going to be shown now. This is one from Week 18. But there are a lot more like this first one, where Bowser drops expertly into the quarterback's window and takes away the first or second option. And the quarterback has to hold on to the football, or as Joe Burrow did in that clip right there, just throw the ball away, which is essentially what that was. You got some unbelievable plays like the 2 I'm going to show you here in terms of his interceptions. This against Tennessee in 2020, and I believe against the Browns in 2020 up in Cleveland. His coverage skills look very good for an outside linebacker in these clips. His instincts are just amazing. Pre-injury, there were times that he showed safety-level coverage skills underneath. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying that he can play safety, but he showed the type of ability to cover space, to cover the field like a safety would. In my opinion, he's got off-the-charts versatility for an outside linebacker, and it's kind of shown here in this play against the Browns. This is a 3-play sequence that I talked about at length in a video on Bowser maybe 6 weeks ago. He was asking for a safety to come over. And he said, eventually, you can tell, he was like, okay, I'll just go ahead and cover the guy myself. He knew what the call was supposed to be. He knew that someone, a safety, was supposed to kick over to that side, and there was some kind of confusion, maybe between Stone, maybe between Clark, not sure. Bowser said, all right, I'll just cover him. That's different. That's unique for an outside linebacker to be able to do that. And then finally, this is the fourth down to finish the game. He's now assigned to cover the tight end man-to-man by call, by definition, and he's able to do it and get the job done. His versatility, when you combine it with the Kyle Hamilton that we now have, after playing 16 games last year, I think, or maybe 17, Patrick Queen, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Williams, the versatility that Bowser offers, it almost gives the Ravens too many options coverage-wise. This defense is going to be very interesting to start the season. The system has been in place for a whole year. Chuck Clark's gone, who had to adapt in some ways to the system last year, has a slightly different role. But Bowser, to me, gives this defense off-the-charts versatility. And I think he was a huge part of how the Ravens were able to slow down Joe Burrow's processing in those two games in Week 18 and the wild card game. Now look, they also held the Bengals offense down in the Week 5 game to win in Baltimore. Don't get me wrong. But they did a great job of mixing coverages in Week 18 in the wild card round. I've talked about it at length in a Kyle Hamilton video that I put out the other day. Bowser's a huge part of that as well. These plays against the Browns from 2021, pre-injury, clearly show you the type of coverage ability that a guy has for playing outside linebacker. And look, preceding these, if you didn't watch my video on Bowser from like 6 weeks ago, like I said, the play immediately before these two, which again finished the win. There you see it. It's a 4th and 10, and he tackled Njoku short of the first down. The play before these two, he decleated the right tackle with a bull rush. Literally lifted him up off his feet. A pretty amazing sequence of 3 plays in a row. And oh, by the way, he's solid as hell against the run. Now look, I'll be honest with you. Last year in 2022, agility-wise, he didn't look the same when he first came back, for me. He didn't look the same agility-wise out in space. I saw 2 plays against the Falcons that I felt like he would have made pre-injury, that he did not. And you're talking about that game at home that the Ravens won 17-9. But look, he's capable of standing up tight ends and stopping any horizontal expansion, let alone talking about vertical expansion. He's capable of overwhelming slot wide receivers that are assigned to block him. Athletic enough to tackle guys like Justin Fields multiple times in that game in 2021 in space. And then perhaps just as important for me, and that play will loop back here again in a moment, is that he's disciplined enough to not be distracted by motion at him, and he'll stay locked in on his assignments with his eyes. You will not see his helmet waver or move in a direction it's not supposed to when he's got motion to his side, or maybe a tight end who's trying to release outside of him. Now, that's not what happens necessarily here. This tight end, releases up to, I think, go get to the 3rd level. But the point is, he's disciplined enough with an athletic, strong profile, and then he can finish the play. He's the complete package for me in this Ravens defense. Is he going to be ever a 10, 12, 13, 14 sack guy per season? Well, no, I wouldn't think so, but would you have predicted that Matt Judon would go to New England and do what he's done since leaving Baltimore? I wouldn't have. I think, and this last statement is going to be another one that I think is going to separate myself from other people in terms of evaluating Tyus Bowser. Because of his versatility, ability to rush the passer, ability to drop out in coverage, be strong against the run, and I think his coverage skills, I think I went over it, at length, but his coverage skills are at an elite level for the position he's playing. I'm going to make a statement that I think there's probably going to be some disagreement with. I think that he's a guy who, in a Super Bowl situation, in a one-game situation, at his best, he's a guy who could be a Super Bowl MVP. Now, I don't mean he's a 14-sack per season guy, a guy who's going to get 6 sacks in the NFL playoffs. What I mean is, if you look at the Bengals wild card game as a blueprint, when he's playing his best, and when he's utilized in the manner that highlights his skills, which Mike McDonald's defense does. He had 3 quarterback hits, 1 sack, against the Bengals spread offense. He was great against the run. I think I showed you one play of that and mixed it in some other film from 2021. He had the pass drop that I showed you out in the flats. Imagine that you're playing somebody who's not used to dealing with Tyus Bowser. Joe Burrow is, from the standpoint of they played the Ravens 3 times last year, even though Bowser didn't play in the Week 5 game, as I mentioned a little bit ago. I could see Bowser as a guy who has 3 quarterback hits, a sack, an interception return for a touchdown, and forces a fumble all in one game if everything's put together. It doesn't mean that he has so much potential that he's never reached. No, what I mean is he has a wide array of talents, skills across all types of plays, the run and the pass, and then his, it's a duality of his pass skills because he can rush the passer and he can drop out in coverage. This is a guy who in a one-game situation, a Super Bowl situation, AFC Championship game, whatever, he could get an MVP award for that game because he's capable of impacting the game in so many ways. That applies to multiple NFL players, but I'm giving you my perspective on Tyus Bowser, what I think he's capable of when he's fully healthy. Do I think he's one of the top 10 outside linebackers in the league? I don't rate people that way. I don't rate players that way. I don't rate people in the real world that way. It's a fake manner, if you ask me. I evaluate Tyus Bowser on what he's asked to do, and now, fully healthy, what the Ravens ask him to do is precisely the 3 things that he's very good at, and I think he provides a level of effectiveness and efficiency to this defense that they need because he's going to be on the field a lot and he's going to be asked to do a lot. All right, the last Ravens outside linebacker / edge player that I want to talk about and kind of preview and show some film of is the one who's probably has the most potential, but there's the least film of. David Ojabo showed incredible promise from his college film at Michigan. The 1 year that he played a significant amount of snaps per game, showed really exciting traits. The first of which is his propensity to force fumbles on pass rushes or even run plays. I mean, I'm thinking of a couple of plays I remember. One against Michigan State, he forced a fumble on a run play at him. Pass rushes around the edge, forcing fumbles. It looked like something that he just did. And then, for only playing 21 snaps or maybe 23 snaps overall in 2022 as a rookie, he forced a fumble against Joe Burrow. Granted, it was, kind of like an LT swat or punch down from behind where Burrow didn't necessarily have awareness that he was there. But that just seems to be what he does. On his first career sack, forces a fumble by Joe Burrow. I think that's pretty significant, or at least worth mentioning. Let's put it that way. We'll let the film run through a couple of times each, to be honest with you. And look, I think Ojabo's got the most potential in terms of sacks for next season. Of the 3 guys that we're talking about today, Bowser, Oweh, Ojabo. He's incredibly explosive. He's got great get-off. But I did not think after watching this film again, this Week 18 film, to be honest with you, I did not think he was tremendously impressive compared to the other 3 guys that the Ravens had on the roster who played a lot of snaps. I'm talking about Justin Houston, Bowser, and JPP, and Oweh, I should say. It actually was 4. Those 4 guys were just better. Looking at his get-off here in this game, I wasn't tremendously impressed. He only played 2 snaps in the playoff game, and I think it was rightfully so. He did have the strip sack, huge play, but comparing him to those other 4 guys, he didn't look nearly as smooth and athletic as he did at Michigan, for me at least. And, am I down on David Ojabo? Do I not think highly of him? Of course not. I think the guy's got tremendous potential. But his pass rush moves seemed a little bit out of sync. You do see the athleticism in some of these moves. It makes sense to me why he was inactive for 5 weeks in a row at one point during the season. I don't think he looked completely ready in Week 18. I mean, he had the huge moment, like I said. I don't think he looked totally comfortable. Let me phrase it that way. Did he look bad in this game? No. Am I doubting Ojabo and his ability? Not at all. There's just not a lot of NFL film to support a 10 or a 12 sack per season projection, at least as it stands right now. The college film exists to show you that he has a crap ton of potential. And in minicamp, he's looked tremendous. Even the little video snippets that we get on Twitter or wherever else, he looks great in drills. And all of the reports coming out is about how great he looks and how well he's done even against the Ravens starting offensive tackles. He's 6'5", he's explosive. He forces fumbles so regularly. Like I said, in just 23 snaps last year, he forced a fumble against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. It reminds me, I think I've said this in a video before, it reminds me of something that Ivan Drago's manager said during Rocky IV, during like a promo leading up to his fight with Rocky about Drago. He said, whatever he hits, he destroys. Ojabo, I almost called him Odrago. Ojabo seems like that to me in terms of when he hits people, the ball comes out. Look at the college film. I think I had 6 games of his from his last year at Michigan, which is really the only year that he started and played a whole lot. He forces fumbles a lot. He's just got a propensity for doing so. Look, I think the group of Oweh, Bowser, and Ojabo is a good one. I'm not as negative about our outside linebacker group as many other people are. The plays are scrolling back through now. This is going to be the strip sack against Burrow. I'm not down on that group at all. I think that the Ravens will be fine with those 3 and some other 4th player. But again, I'm going to advocate for re-signing Justin Houston. You guys have already heard me talk about it. He would complete this group in terms of the role perspective. Bowser, Oweh are really solid at well, Bowser's really solid at everything. Justin Houston's really good against the run as well. Don't get me wrong, but he's just a pass rushing genius. Him and Ojabo being the guys to rush off the edge in obvious passing situations. Let Bowser, Oweh kick inside if need be, along with Robinson or whoever else the Ravens let Travis Jones rush the passer. In some of those situations. I think Justin Houston provides depth and security for Mike Macdonald's defense. If Ojabo struggles against a particular type of player, Houston could get more reps that week. If Houston needs to rest, and in a 17-game, I don't think a 17-game regular season in football is only adding one more game from 16. And of course it is mathematically, but to me, the game of football, the way that extending the regular season out one more week, one more competitive week, I think really calls into question whether teams should start strategically resting players 1 or 2 weeks in the season. God forbid they ever go to an 18-game regular season. At some point, there has to be a moment when teams talk about it, right? Or at least they consider it in their meetings. And with a guy like Justin Houston, for me, I think a 17-game regular season is not realistic. I would not want him to play 17 games. Now, in his contract negotiations, if he does come back to the Ravens or if he does come back at all this year, he may want to play 17 games. He may want to. But with the depth the Ravens have, it may make sense to rest someone like him 1 or 2 games strategically during the season, particularly, in Week 18. Getting back to Ojabo, since he's healthy and playing with no hesitation, he's already a different player than you're seeing in this film. He played 20 snaps in this game against the Bengals. I did not think that everything was in sync. Against the run, you can see the strength. You can see the ability to move people. The next play isn't as impressive. I feel like watching this film, he wasn't finishing plays with amazing force. It doesn't mean that he's lazy. That's not what I'm saying. It just didn't seem to me that he was finishing. Well, he hadn't played a whole lot of live football up to this point. He was inactive for 5 weeks, played 1 snap, inactive for 1 week, and then I think played this game in Week 18. Showed a lot of potential. We were all excited, as well we should have been. I'm gonna discontinue spot shadowing here. If the 3 guys that we talked about in this video, Houston, can be bolstered by Justin Houston, I should say, I could see a group effort in terms of the sacks. And that's not what a lot of people, Ravens fans, are going to want to hear. I'm not comfortable projecting 8, 10, 12 sacks out of Ojabo if the Ravens sign Justin Houston. Because what I mean by saying that specifically is there's going to be a lot of guys who get reps. There's going to be a lot of guys who get on the field. And if there is a specific matchup or a snap count limitation for a particular week, maybe a guy's got an ankle injury but is able to go at 90% or 85%. Or maybe there's a matchup that they want to preserve on 3rd down. Justin Houston against a particular right guard or David Ojabo against a particular left tackle. Strategic rest, which I kind of mentioned earlier or briefly explained. The score of the game as well impacts how many sacks guys can get. The Ravens are in the lead often, you're going to get more pass plays. The Ravens are losing and have to come back and win often, maybe they're going to get more run plays defensively and limit the opportunities you would have as an individual pass rusher. To me, with those four guys, I guess I'm kind of counting my chickens before they hatch in terms of Justin Houston. With those four guys around, I could see a situation where all four of them end up with between 5 and 8 sacks apiece. Maybe one guy has 9 or 10 or even 11, something like that. To me, Ojabo or Justin Houston would be the guys that I would say would be on the higher end of the projection, just because of the athleticism, the length, the explosiveness of Ojabo, and then the body of work that Justin Houston has shown you, including last year, the 3-week stretch where I believe he had 6.5 sacks in a 3-week stretch, or maybe it was 7.5 sacks in a 4-week stretch. I should have researched my numbers somewhere. I did find that for a previous video. I'm extremely impressed with the film coming out of Ojabo, and all the reports tell you that the guy is ready to go. You can see him in the drills, the little drills that we get to see on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. By the way the Ravens wired was amazing. Don't normally watch that during the season because I don't always have time, but someone in the Discord sent a link this week and linked it up, said, hey, check this out. It was incredible. If you haven't watched the Ravens Wired episode from after mandatory minicamp, you should. I think it was pretty unbelievable piece of work. But in any case, look, these three guys, I think, is a great trio. Besides the fact that it's a really cool graphic that, again, was provided to me by a friend. These three guys they got a lot of potential. I think adding Justin Houston is a necessity because of the 17-game season, because of the way Tyus Bowser is used in coverage so often. If you only had these three guys and then a Robinson, the rookie, and that was it in terms of your edge players, your guys on the outside, I'm not sure that you have enough pieces there to do everything that Mike Macdonald likes to do. Now, other people are going to say it a different way. They're going to say these three guys aren't going to produce enough sacks. It's about more than sacks. For me, it's about the totality of what Mike Macdonald and the defensive staff, which is an amazing defensive staff, by the way, it's about the totality of what they're going to try to do with their stunts, with their blitzes, with their coverages, who they're dropping in coverage. It appears to me as if Tyus Bowser at the end of 2022 looked like himself again, the guy that I thought was playing at an extremely high level his last 4 or 5 games in 2021. Oweh's got to be more consistent. There is no doubt. Ojabo just needs opportunities, and those opportunities will either force him to cash in on them, make plays, make sacks, force fumbles, or give him things he needs to improve on. To me, Justin Houston being there, at minimum, as a guy who can play 20 snaps a game in pass rush situations, just makes the most sense out of everything. I'm sure that there are people who will agree with that, but maybe agree for different reasons because they don't think these three guys are capable of producing enough sacks to have a balanced defense. I think they are, because the system that the Ravens are going to use, while not being a Wink Martindale crazy blitz, stunts, crossover stunts defense, is Mike Macdonald's defense is going to produce sacks, in my opinion. He's going to. It's a more conservative defense with too high shell, often playing quarters coverages, switching up coverages, particularly in the games that you saw against the Bengals Week 18 and the wild card loss, 24-17. The Ravens switched up coverages brilliantly against Joe Burrow, while still maintaining, consistent pressure against Burrow. I think they can do that with these three guys, but it just makes the most sense for me to bring back Justin Houston, have him be the pass rush guru, along with Chuck Smith, obviously, who I think is a drastic improvement over what we had last year. Just like the inside linebacker coaching position was improved last year by getting rid of Rob Ryan. I think the outside linebacker position will be improved by bringing in Chuck Smith, who's universally recognized as a guy who can get the best out of people. I think this group is going to be far better than a lot of people presume. If it was me, I would address corner from a front office standpoint and Justin Houston for the 25th time in this video. Those would be the two things that I would want to see addressed. How much cap room is out there for the Ravens to do so is the first question, I guess. And then the second question is, does it make more sense to wait until during the season to try to address one of those two positions? The Ravens may not even have the cap space to address both of them at all prior to the season starting or prior to training camp starting. You guys let me know what you think of those thoughts and the video. If you sat here through the whole Saturday live, I appreciate it. I pre-recorded this and then posted it up or uploaded it for people to enjoy. I certainly love talking about the Ravens outside linebackers. All three of these guys are unique and different. Ojabo and Oweh appear to share certain characteristics. Of course, they played high school together. They're the same height, just about the same weight, I think 255 or so. But I think they're different guys and they have different strengths. And then Bowser brings the element of a jack of all trades and a master of at least one thing, which is pass drops. I appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoy this video, please let me know in the comment section. If you've ever considered joining the Discord, we have a pretty active Discord where people talk about players, talk about plays, talk about concepts. Instead of complaining, we all try to work toward understanding certain things more. And I will tell you, the Discord and the group of people that's in there, I think it's like 70 people in there at this point, they help me create content. They really help push me in certain directions to try to create content. And they also help with some of my audio, some of my evaluation, and point out things that maybe I missed. So in any case, I want to thank those guys and gals who have joined the Discord through my Patreon, and then ask you if you'd be interested in joining to please click the link in the description here for my Patreon. Check it out, see if it's something that interests you. If you think other people might enjoy this video, please consider grabbing a link and sharing it out on social media to help this live stream get more reach.